Hello everyone and welcome to the show. This is of course spoiler warning, wrestling news you can't find anywhere else, and today we're going to be largely talking about late last minute changes to the Evolution 2 card and how desperate the WWE are getting with some of these changes. We are going to be discussing of course our title names, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, but we're also going to talk about Nikki Bella, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, and of course Trish Stratus. We also have a little bit about the Wyatt 6, something on a Body Slam paywall report, something about a Brian Alvarez paywall report, something about a WrestleVotes paywall report, a little bit about what's the plan for Becky Lynch, and then we'll talk more about an impending rebuild of the women's tag division. So we're going to start with Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, and that rebuild that we've been discussing. We will, of course, then be following up by answering as many of your questions as we can, so be sure to get those questions in. The WWE currently... Sorry, one second. My throat's gone a bit sore. I do apologise. So, I don't mean to make anyone uncomfortable, but... Yeah, so just in time for the birthday show on Monday, I've come down a little bit under the weather. Children, innit? They always got something. So... The WWE are currently using Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair in an attempt to rebuild the women's tag division. Plans for this include several more teams and the debut of others. This includes the return of the Kabuki Warriors and more title defenses from the Judgment Day's Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. I mentioned previously that Raquel and Roxanne were going to end up with the tag team championships. That is, of course, what has now happened. But the WWE have been sort of booking as quickly as possible things of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. The return of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair both happened at the Royal Rumble, and the intention was not to have them work together. After WrestleMania, however, it became clear there was no real plan for either of them, with matches that were intended, such as, for example, Alexa Bliss versus Nikki Cross, thrown a little bit to one side. With this in mind, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair themselves pitched the idea of working together, but the creative team did not put particular credence into it. Now, with people pulling out, people injured, and people unavailable for Evolution, plus a SummerSlam to build shortly afterwards, the WWE are revisiting the pairing in the effort to ensure that Charlotte Flair is not completely abandoned and not completely booed. Yes, you heard it right. The WWE do believe a pairing of Alexa Bliss will help Charlotte Flair to maintain a face persona, or at least begin the reclaim of one. So at the moment, the WWE using Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair in an attempt to rebuild their tag division. Thank you very much, Dan, for the rose on TikTok side. Appreciate you very much for that. Any donations you guys want to give are of course very welcome, but they are not necessary. I appreciate them. I don't want to put anyone out of pocket, just to be clear. Thank you very much for that, Dan. I'm grateful for it. So how's everyone doing? Welcome to the show. Good to see so many people. Declan just bombarding with chat rate. Always nice to see. Welcome Chris. Welcome Sid. Welcome Bailey. Welcome Michael. Welcome Ashley. And a happy 4th of July to anyone who celebrates as well. Erin says, excited for the show today. Thank you, Erin. Me too. Always like hosting them. And Joe says, hey Tom, happy 4th to all. Liam has given us news about SmackDown, saying SmackDown returns to 2 hours today. Advertised for SmackDown, Tiffany Stratton chooses her challenger for Evolution 2. King of the Ring winner Cody Rhodes and Queen of the Ring winner Jade Cargill. US Champion Solo Sikoa. Sledgehammer says howdy everyone, welcome. Liam, thank you as always for providing the source, says according to those close to AJ Styles, the claim is he signed a 1-year contract extension with WWE. That's via Fightful Select. I cannot confirm that. I haven't personally heard anything about that. However, that doesn't mean it's untrue. Fightful Select naturally have their own sources. Anonymous is asking about the AJ Styles deal. As I say, I cannot confirm it. I do not have details of it. I only know what he was pushing for. Liam, we will be talking about the Britt Baker report a little later. Welcome, Sean. Welcome, Eric. Declan says, any news on Becky Lynch? We will be talking about Becky, yes. Mr. X says, any news about Saraya and WWE? Saraya has been reaching out. WWE has not reached back. I'm told reports that she'll be at Evolution 2 are premature. I feel like I use the word premature more than anything else. Ooh. Liam says, speaking on the morning, John Cena confirmed that his retirement match will take place in mid-December. Once again, reaffirmed that he has only 15 dates left and he's retiring after that. Liam also brings in news from WrestleVotes, saying there's a strong push to get Corey Graves on main roster weekly, regardless of who is or isn't available. Many feel he's too good and passionate to not be featured. Eric, you've sourced from Cultaholic. That news, I believe, originally came from Fightful. Bailey says, keep Tom healthy. Unfortunately, every birthday I seem to be sick with something. Good evening, Cecil. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Liam, you'll find your first source for Roman Reigns returning in the build to SummerSlam was, of course, spoiler warning. Sean says, how are the teams you see in the four-way evolution, Tom? Do you see Roxanne and Raquel losing that match also? I think it's possible. I don't think it's guaranteed. I think the four-way is a good way to rebuild the division, but I think, a 2-on-2 feud with Roxanne and Raquel versus Alexa Bliss and Raquel Rodriguez, and Charlotte Flair works brilliantly. I think it works absolutely brilliantly, and they pair very nicely. Thank you very much for following, Sarah. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. I'm not going to comment on that one at this point, Chris, just that, as you know, they are my team. So I'm going to try and get through the show. It was a shock. Ray says, I'm really looking forward to TNA Slammiversary, seeing Mike Santana become TNA World Champion. Declan saying, I'm still manifesting Becky 2 belts for SummerSlam. You'll have to keep waiting on that one. Wrestler fan, we will be talking about that a little later. Welcome, Blue. Good to see you. Ray says, John Cena was on the morning on ITV talking about his new film. This morning. Thank you for clarifying. Juan says, hey, Tom. Welcome, Juan. Liam says, who do you think with the Battle Royal and goes on to Paris? Difficult one. There's a lot of bodies in there. Eric says, good morning, Tom. Feel like WWE had no real plans for Asuka and Kairi Sane individually. Now they've been placed in the women's tag team division. Yes, that's true. Bismo says, good evening, Tom. I toast a cherry coke to you and to you, good sir. Sean says, speaking on the MMA hour, Matt and Jeff Hardy said they'd like to have one last run in WWE. Jeff said he turned down a Hall of Fame induction and wants to go in the Hall of Fame with his brother. The reason they were trying to induct Jeff into the Hall of Fame first was essentially to say to him, hey, retire. So he didn't take that. They believe there's still life in Matt Hardy's career. They do not believe the same of Jeff's. Sean would like to see Stephanie Vaca win the Battle Royal. Appreciate that, Blue. I think tragedies like this do bring out the best in the opposition. So it's always quite nice to see people come together in that way. As intense a rivalry as our clubs have had, there have definitely been moments when people put those issues aside. Bailey says, turning Charlotte face will not be easy unless they move her away from the entitled character they had that has been written for her for a decade. That is the intention. And Leon says, hi Tom, hope you're doing well. Doing okay, mate. A bit throaty, but other than that, good. Hope you're good too. Next up. During a spoiler-heavy SmackDown, please be aware that I'm about to go into spoiler situations. Tiffany Stratton is booked for Evolution against Trish Stratus. This happened during a spoiler-heavy show because Trish Stratus has limited availability and can't commit to anything major. As such, this was the only date they could really fit her in and kick things off. The match also would suggest that Tiffany Stratton's run is nearing its end, and I am told her championship run has been very well received, but as it's her first championship, they don't want to have too much expectation on her for too long, so that championship is likely going to be changing hands shortly. A Jade Cargill, a Naomi, a Bianca Belair, someone in that region is likely to be competing for it. Sean says, I see Maxine and Natalia, Alexa and Charlotte, and Sol and Zarya in the four-way evolution. That could be a lot of fun, and we do know there's going to be a lot of NXT input on the show. Liam says, per WrestleVotes, Dominic Mysterio versus AJ Styles for the IC title is currently expected to take place at SummerSlam in New Jersey. That's weird because I'm pretty sure it's WrestleVotes who previously reported that Dominic Mysterio versus Finn Balor was going to be taking place at SummerSlam. They're going to try to drag this out till WrestleMania, aren't they? Next up. The WWE is actively struggling to provide intelligent booking for the Wyatt Six, and in fact are already encountering a number of stumbling blocks as to how to achieve their goals. First and foremost, and this is not the fault of the Wyatt Six, to be clear, there have been some issues as regards the draft. The WWE were planning to move some teams across to Raw, such as the Motor City Machine Guns and Pretty Deadly, but have not been able to do so because the draft has been pushed back, and that has meant an oversaturated tag division. Now, this has given the Wyatt Six a lot of options. However, what they seem to be doing is just throwing everyone together as best they can and trying to get people back into some in-ring fitness. They are trying to establish these characters not as supernatural, but as wrestlers, and a large part of that will be a lot of good old-fashioned wrestling matches. So there's a slow burn and a slow build to this, but there are some issues with what they're doing. They do not want the championships to be completely out of the running, and if the championships land on the Wyatt Six, it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to get them off them. So they want to keep the Wyatt Six strong, but they also don't want to give them the belts. Instead, we have a bit of a mess of consistent and just back and forth matches in the tag division, with no real championships changing hands for a while. They've had the hot potato, they want to stick with what they've got, but I will say, something's gotta give on this one. Welcome, Lukey, good to see you. Welcome to the show. Ooh. Liam says, per bodyslam.net, WWE is very interested in signing Danhausen in the tag team Private Party. Interesting. Sean says, do you see TNA talent evolution? I'd like to see the Iconics, Inspiration and Indy Hartwell. It depends. There is a possibility, however, the WWE are unlikely to get them on the main roster, as I previously mentioned. Declan, I think that's too early for me. Stephanie Vaca versus Becky Lynch for WrestleMania is still what I personally see for the Intercontinental Championship. Blue, it's a good point. I think a large part of it is that Triple H doesn't really want to trade anyone. He, in fact, doesn't want anything involved with a brand split. As I've mentioned before, he just doesn't like the concept. Liam says, Paul Heyman talking about a plan B. Definitely something huge cooking right now. Either Sammy or Cody is turning heel. Or, in fact, The Rock looking after Team Rollins. Liam says, official, Seth Rollins versus LA Knight is set for Saturday night's main event on July 12th. Huge match. Sean says, I've read that one. Do you see EO retaining over Rhea at Evolution? Yes, I do. Daz Miro, or Rusev, has been feuding with Sheamus recently on good old-fashioned Raw. Kevin says 2 weeks for the Evolution pay-per-view is not enough to build storylines. I completely agree. Thank you, Marcel. Welcome to the show, and thank you for popping back. Blue says Triple H is being kind of stubborn about it. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's a good way of putting it. One says, hey Tom, curious question. How come nobody's giving WWE backlash for signing a bunch of ex-AEW talent, but AEW always got it? It seems like a prejudice concept. It is a prejudice concept. The WWE do get crap for it. They absolutely do. But it's mostly from the exact same people who give AEW crap for signing WWE people. This is how it should be. I think it's a lot about the fact that AEW sort of paved the way for WWE to do it. Need to top up my drink. Oh, my throat is killing me. Blue says, I also find it weird that Triple H is so against the brand split, but he wants a big roster as well. Yeah, he wants a big roster, and he does like the idea of lots of people sitting and catering for 4 or 5 months at a time. He likes rotation. It's not a bad concept. He just likes rotation. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. Kevin says, next week there's too much wrestling. The Evolution pay-per-view, NXT's Great American Bash, AEW All In, and Saturday night's main event show. Yeah, WWE flooded the market, so you're going to have to make a choice. That was always the plan. Oh, that's better. Declan, I definitely see Becky winning more world championships in her future. Welcome, Parrish. Good to see you. Says, remember to like this video by hitting the thumbs up button. And if you don't mind, please share this video. I appreciate you for trying to get the blast out there. Ooh, okay. Ginger Knight says, discard anything you have from your sources. Okay. What is your hottest long-term booking take? The idea being WrestleMania 42 or 43. Well, I've mentioned before that I think we're going to get Becky Lynch losing the Intercontinental Championship to Stephanie Vaquer at WrestleMania 42. I do think we're going to be looking at something like a Randy Orton Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. If we're going to 43, I do think there will be a championship feud, Roman Reigns challenging and failing to unseat Jacob Fatu. Hopefully that's what you were looking for, Ginger Knight. Dad says, watch the pig always and forever. Always and forever. You won't regret a single day. A number of people in the WWE women's locker room are reportedly unhappy with the rushed nature of Evolution and believe that the WWE is simply... Pardon me. Not giving them a fighting chance to compete at their best because of the rushed nature of it. WWE management have apparently blamed leaks for not announcing the show sooner, but in reality, the concept of this show was a late idea, seemingly designed purely to compete and take advantage of a heavy roster. It's a live show with a fancy name to try to sell tickets, and that seems to be the WWE model at the moment, because Saturday Night Main Event is also a live show with a fancy name to try to sell tickets. WWE believe that they can sell more and get themselves more over by giving everything a fancy name. So be it, but it's not working for me, I'll tell you that. Blue says, which of the men's and the women's world champions do you think will drop their title first? Tiffany Stratton, I think. Pardon me, not too well at the minute. I think her championship reign will be done by SummerSlam. Bailey thinks Roman could be retiring by Mania 43, which is also something worth considering. And Sean says there was backlash when Io picked Rhea to be her opponent at Evolution. Fans wanted her to pick Stephanie Vaquer. Well, the original intention was for it to be Liv Morgan. Sean says Cody will be Guile in the Street Fighter movie. There are rumours of that. I'd be into it. I'd be very into it, especially if it's anything like the previous Street Fighter movie. You know, Jean-Claude Van Damme. All American. Blue says WWE has too many PLEs. I enjoy them, but you can't build to this many on such short notice. I completely agree. Welcome, Proud Dad says, hello, Tom. Hope all is well. Doing okay, bit under the weather, but I appreciate you, Proud Dad, for joining us here. Body Slam's paywall, they have a paywall Patreon now, has reported that Britt Baker is looking to leave AEW. I've been unable to find any evidence to support that, and in fact, plenty of evidence against it. I can in fact confirm that Britt Baker remains contracted to AEW at this time and is not aggravating for a release. Thank you for the heart, Proud Dad. Appreciate you for that. Brian Alvarez, behind a Twitter paywall, has reported that The Miz will be back soon after he finished recording a TV show, which is stunning information once you know that first bit. What I will say is that at that point, I do expect Carmelo Hayes to start making appearances once again. There is more of a push for them to be in the tag division. Sean says, do you see Julia having a long reign with the women's US title? I see her having a decent reign. I can see her losing it around WrestleMania time, but I definitely think it'll be quite a few months she's got hold of it to establish her, and in fact establish Roxanne Perez, establish Stephanie Vaquer. They're there to win championships. They are there to make an impact, and they are there to do exactly what they're already doing. Racer's Edge, aka Adam Copeland, said his career is winding down. He says a lot of things. Barry says, any news on the contract status on Cross and Scarlett? My apologies if you've already covered this. I'm watching you and Paw Patrol with the kiddo. Oh, bless. I always got caught out by Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and now it's in my brain forever. Those contracts are set to expire in about a month. There has been no extension at this point in time. One of the sticking points is that Karrion Kross does want to go back to the name Killer Kross. The WWE not inclined to provide that. Scarlett, it is believed, will only sign a contract if and when Karrion does. And if he does not, she will go with him wherever he goes afterwards. Ed has popped over to the TikTok side, dropped a heart, dropped to go popular, and says, hey, Tom Talkers. Thank you very kindly, Ed. I appreciate you for that. WrestleVotes have reported that Travis Scott would be working Money in the Bank. Of course, this didn't happen, but they're also the only one trying to define the narrative of why this didn't happen. So WrestleVotes have both reported that Travis Scott would be working Money in the Bank and that he wouldn't be working Money in the Bank, and then tried to explain why they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. Even though it didn't happen, even though the thing they said didn't happen, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. Tidbit on Becky Lynch. The assumption for Evolution at this point is that we'll see Lynch versus Bayley versus Valkyria, allowing space for Bayley versus Lynch one-on-one at SummerSlam. Eric says, any news on Athena with her contract coming up? Nothing at this point in time, though Triple H is said to be very interested in bringing her back to the WWE. Nick Khan, who holds the purse strings, is not so keen. Billy says, I found out that Wrestling News Co. is another one of those channels that posts rumours without evidence. What I really enjoy is the outlets that don't source. They just say, our website has been able to confirm this, and they just repeat what someone else says. And they make money from that. It's a ridiculous world we live in. Perry says, with War Games coming back this year, any idea of who it will feature? There's a clear suggestion that Jacob Fatu is going to be leading a team that may well contain Roman Reigns. Final piece of news. Nikki Bella was originally planned for a tag team championship match at Evolution against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. With Liv Morgan being injured, this match has been pulled. In addition to that, the WWE were trying to convince Brie Bella to return to tag with her sister, but they were unable to come to an agreement before the match was pulled. The WWE have assured Nikki Bella that there will be a different match in future, potentially even a championship match against someone such as Io Sky. Now, at this point, the WWE have pivoted to Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, as I mentioned earlier, but there is still a hope that they can convince Brie Bella to return to the WWE and tag with her sister, because at this point in time, the WWE simply don't want Nikki Bella wrestling solo if they can help it. Twin Magic, they want them as a pair. Parrish, as regards Evolution, I haven't heard of any TNA involvement just yet, though of course this would be depending on whether they consider Evolution main roster. That was the Liv news, Eric. News of what the original planned match was for her Evolution, but she's injured at this point, and we're not expected to see her for a while. Wrestler Fan says, will Nikki still be wrestling at Evolution? I don't believe so at this point in time, no. Okay, guys, that is all of the news. We've peaked at 82 people watching. There's been, unfortunately, a bit of a crazy run for the last few shows, largely because we've had shows that have already been spoiled. We've had shows that have been going live before this spoiler warning even starts. So it's been a little bit crazy, but I assure you we will keep making content as best we can to entertain here. Monday coming up, the 7th, will be the birthday show. I'll be turning 37 on the day. I hope to see as many of you there as we can. Until then, as always, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.